Bum, bum,
Hey,
bum. I like that lead in. I do.
I do. I
Yeah.
do.
Hey, welcome. Hi, how you doing?
I'm doing fine. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. And those of you that are listening, I'm Blaine Bartlett, and I'm doing good.
And I'm Doland White, and I'm doing good. So
And
therefore,
this is the power of you.
here we are.
Yeah,
Here we
one
are.
more time with feeling. We do
One,
this
one more.
every week.
Yeah, yeah. This has been a lot of fun. This is our continued conversation on leaders and seasons and all of this stuff.
All this stuff. Yeah, it's a recognition that one size does not fit all.
Oh
Yeah,
my.
when your environment starts getting squirrely,
Yeah.
it calls on you to be a different kind of leader sometimes. Sometimes it
Mm.
definitely calls on you to be a behaviorally different leader.
Oh my. That it does. Oh yeah. And if you think it's going to be straight, it's not.
It's not going to be straight.
It's
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
Just not.
Straight only happens in models. Yeah.
Right, which we'll talk about today. We'll talk about a
Yeah.
model.
Yeah. We've actually got a model to show you today on this one. This
Yeah.
is, those of you that are running an organization and have teams that report to you or teams that are actually interacting with each other, just team. I mean, and if you've got an organization, you're going to have a team of people, a group of people that are executing. You're not just doing it by yourself, unless you are truly just a mom pop operation and it's just you.
Yeah.
Even then, some things that we're going to talk about today will become relevant. When you start thinking about your role as a leader in a change situation. And you and I had conversations about this when we way back in the pandemic when we did the whole series on black swan events.
Right.
These things that kind of unexpectedly show up and knock the best laid plans of mice and men into the gutter.
Exactly. There are those kinds of events, and no matter it's funny because I know we've said this before. We both been with our clients when we coach clients together, but when we're out in our career, I've looked for things that would go the way I thought they would go. And
often did you find it?
No, I haven't yet. But if any of the leaders, if any of you out there have anything that you think is going to go the way it's going to go, give me a call and we'll have it. We'll talk.
We'll burst that bubble for you.
Yeah, we'll have a chat. But it's such a good conversation. Let's do it.
Power of you. Today we're going to be looking at change and its impact on leaders and leadership and what's required when things start going squirrely. I mean, real simply, and I actually love this quote from Marshall Goldsmith. What got you here won't get you there. He wrote a whole book around this, and it is so true. What got us to a certain level of performance, a certain level of success, is not going to be what takes us to that next level, particularly if we're looking at what we call a growal, something that is going to move you into very unfamiliar territory.
Yes.
So,
yeah. That's where I was going to go ahead. That's where today's conversation is incredibly pertinent to this topic. To this, what got you there, what got you here, isn't going to get you there. And you gotta have a good sense. And the model is great. You got to understand the model, but you need to know when to apply it, how to apply it, what indicators to look for. Otherwise,
things kind of become difficult at best.
They can.
They oftentimes do. The idea here of what got you here won't get you there is a recognition that change is inevitable. Change is the only constant. Just to be a little bit flippant about it.
Yeah.
But it is. You're going to have new people coming on. You're going to have old people leaving. You're going to have changes in work processes. You're going to have the environment do something squirrely. All of a sudden, we've got tariffs. Now we have to reprice. What's that going to do to our margin model? I mean, just all kinds of stuff comes into play here. So what do we do as leaders when all of this stuff happens? How do we get our teams situated so that they can actually address these things in a healthy way rather than getting sidelined or trapped in a big pothole going, how did we get here?
Yeah, that is the art. There is the art right
Therein
there.
is the art. So
therein is the art.
When we're thinking about, and we'll put this in generically in a big box, it says change. You can start looking at the organization, specifically your team, your people, and there are going to be some very broad brushstroke symptoms that kind of show up. And we've mapped these actually to this model we're going to be showing you here in just a moment. But one of the most common ones is paralysis. Things just kind of freeze. The amygdala response comes in. Oh my God, we're going to die. What are we going to do? Every change requires in some way, shape, or form that you have to start over. I mean, one of the ways that Doland and I define sustainable success with the clients with whom we work is it's about developing the capacity to continuously start over. And that, just at face value, oftentimes is a non-starter for leaders. It certainly is a non-starter for a lot of teams. What do you mean start over? Yeah,
it is. Yeah, that's such a big conversation. In matter of fact, I had a client this week take a breath with that start over. Let's unpack that just a skosh.
Let's see what that actually entails.
And yes, and part of it is start over is what occurs every day, by the way.
What do we need to learn new? What do we need to do to jettison what isn't working? Are we able to make that decision? Are we able to shoot the sacred cow?
Right.
We've always done it this way. Well, okay, let's examine that one right now. So the team actually becomes paralyzed. I mean, it's deer in a headlight time. And here's interestingly what happens is in that freeze moment, they start looking to you as the leader, as the mechanism that is, you become the cavalry. You become the silver bullet that is going to save the day. And there's some credence to that. But there's a whole lot of other stuff that comes into play here in terms of what you can do with your team to quickly get them off that, oh my God, we're going to die scenario and into, hey, this is kind of cool. Where can we take this?
Right.
Sort of emotion.
Yeah.
So symptom number one, paralysis when change or disruption occurs. And it doesn't have to be extended, but you'll notice it. It's kind of like, whoa. That's a signal that something is up that you need to address as a leader.
Yeah, that's such a good symptom, and it hooks so tightly into number two, turf and interpersonal conflicts. And I love this statement, Blaine, around protecting feelings becomes more important than surfacing conflict and pushing growth, because we have that. And you kind of touched on it just a moment ago around change. We have a relationship with how we do things.
Yeah.
We have a relationship. It's and change is uncomfortable. So rather than focusing in on that opportunity to gosh, it was a podcast interview yesterday that I did. We were talking about psychological safety, which is the kind of one of the terms, right? But it's that conversation around we're so focused on the aspect of psychological safety that we're going to protect from change, rather than dealing with psychological safety with the opportunity that's inside of change and surfacing the fact that we get to look at things differently, look for the opportunity, think about it in alignment with that for the sake of what. And it's easy as a symptom in your organization. You can hear that leaders in when you're talking with your directs or talking up, down, left, right inside of the body of the organization, when they're talking about, well, I really didn't want to say anything because I'm not sure how they would take it.
Yeah. Which, in our 4-pillar model, it starts to look at, we start looking through the window of trust. I'm not sure how they would take it. I don't literally saying, I'm not sure I can trust myself to handle how they will take it.
Right. Exactly.
And it's all relationship. It is. That's all an organization is. It's a collection of people in relationship. People have relationships with change.
Yeah.
And that's when that gets disrupted, people don't like their relationships disrupted. They don't.
We don't like it. We are wired not to enjoy change.
Which moves us into number 3 here. If you've got a team that has been together for a while, this one shows up actually fairly frequently.
It does.
They've fought some battles together. They've been in the foxhole, so to speak, metaphorically. They've come out the other side, and it's kind of like they've actually begun to develop appreciation for each other, if not, but they've certainly, Tom over here brings it. He's got some good ideas sometimes. So there's appreciation that starts to come into play here. The challenge is that the team can become very complacent. They start, singing Kumbaya. We'll sit around the campfire. God, I love these people. What are we doing again? Yeah, that sort of a thing. And harmony becomes kind of the focal point rather than productivity or performance. Harmony can be very seductive. And what ends up happening many times is we end up with something, and this is tracking back to number 2, protecting feelings becomes more important than surfacing conflict. What we call cordial hypocrisy. You're not willing to call each other out on stuff. You're not willing to call yourself out on stuff. So, oversensitivity can create a team that values relationship harmony over organizational results. And that's a unique leadership challenge. Because the team is engaged. I mean, but the question is, engaged in what?
I love that. Love when we talk about these symptoms. And leaders, I would challenge you as you're here, listen to Blaine talk about this. Think about those 2 words, cordial hypocrisy. How many times have you been in a meeting around your team, around other teams, and it's cordial hypocrisy? It's everything's polite, and it's all wonderful, and we're all kumbaya, but we are not going to be accountable.
Yep. Accountability disappears in the face of cordial hypocrisy.
Yep. Not going to do it. Can't make me accountable. I'm not going to do it. And then last but not least, performance is king, which is that opportunity, which I look at the word performance. Being a musician, there's a bunch of ways to define performance. Performance is how you behave on stage, and performance is the amount of work that you are getting done. And in both cases, you lose touch with for the sake of what? That worthy ideal, which we'll touch on here in a minute.
Why are we doing this? And we'll see this in high-performing organizations where, and I say high-performing, another way of thinking about this is if you're looking to scale your organization, the default for most leaders, and I mean most leaders, is we'll do more harder because I know what got us here. I know what we did to get here. So let's just do more of that harder.
That's right.
It's a focus on performance. It's a focus on productivity, and it risks poking holes in the relational dynamic that actually served to get you where you got originally. There was a team synergy that if you get too focused on performance, too focused on the task, too focused on the outcome, too attached to the outcome, you can put everything in a crapper real quick.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's a good technical term. Everything in a crapper is real quick. Everything in the crapper.
Everything just goes.
But it is so true. When performance outweighs the for the sake of what, which is kind of that point now, we've tipped it all the way over into the red. Then you've lost connection with that worthy ideal. But we had a conversation this week with one of the people on our mastermind about this. When you lose connection with that worthy ideal, now you're dealing with look busy. Now I'm dealing with I'm just going to get things done, or maybe I'm not, and hopefully nobody will notice.
Yeah. You talked about tipping things over into the red. I mean, think about the symptomatic number 4. Where performance is king. And in most cars, there's a tachometer.
Yeah.
And there's little shades in there. And when you start getting into the red, the engine is overstressed. You don't want to keep it in the red too long. And if you keep it in the red too long, all kinds of unwanted things begin to happen. That's what we're talking about with number 4 here. You need, as a leader, find a way to dial it back, because you're going to compromise performance in the long run. You may get some short-term bursts, but it's the long term that we're looking at here.
Yeah, you run the risk.
You don't want to redline the organization.
You will cook your people, and they don't taste very good. So
they don't taste good at all. No. So this group development matrix is a way to address these symptoms. And when I said a little bit ago, we mapped these symptoms to this model. So the 4 stages that you see here, and we'll talk about each one of these. Each one of them has a behavioral component to them that can look symptomatically like what we just described.
Yeah.
So just an acknowledgement here. The fellow that developed this model, John Jones, he was a PhD. I had the very distinct privilege of working with John back in the 1980s. He founded an organization called University Associates, which isn't around any longer. And John died, probably 20 years ago. But he was a really interesting organizational development scientist. He would just look at what makes this thing tick. It's got people in it. How come it works? Was his question. And many of you are familiar with the notion of, when teams come together, there's the forming, the storming, the norming meme, that is often used to describe how teams actually develop over time. John took that and said, wait a minute, it's got to be a little bit more sophisticated than that. There's got to be more to it than just forming, storming, norming. What informs the forming, storming, norming piece here? So he broke it down into process behaviors, the ways that we do things, and task behaviors. Just kind of what is actually going on here from a tactical perspective. And on the process side, this is relationship. There's relational components that come into play here. Dependency. So there's a high dependency on the leader to provide direction, to provide all kinds of information, to provide access to resources, blah, blah, blah. Conflict has to do with the ways that interpersonal relationships are in play when people start moving into roles and responsibilities, task assignments, who's taking what, who owns what. Yeah, and this gets interesting when we start looking at it through the lens of accountability. Yeah, because oftentimes people associate accountability with blame. Who's accountable for this? Not me.
Yeah, always love that. Yeah.
And who then did cohesion it really is from an organizational development standpoint, from a team development. Yeah, we've been together long enough to begin to appreciate each other. We may not really like each other, but we appreciate what you bring to the table. And so we've also fought the battles. We've got the scars to prove it, and I got your back. So there's cohesion that kind of comes into play here. The level above that has to do with interdependence, and this is actually what sets a high-performing team apart from a loosely organized group of people. Interdependence says, I can't do what I'm doing unless you bring what you bring to the table. Without what you bringing to the table, if that's not present, we're compromised. And so that interdependence shows up. And it is really a very powerful dynamic. And it's something that, interestingly here, you can't impose. It has to actually be developed as part and parcel of the way that the team is organized. And the people and part of that organization has to do with who's on the team as well as what they bring to the table from a skills and knowledge perspective. Right. So that's the process side. On the task side, from a leadership perspective and from a team perspective, if I'm a member of a team, I want to get oriented. Yeah, okay. Particularly if we're got a new project coming together or we're a newly formed team. Orientation. Okay, what's up? What's this about? Why'd you call us together? Who called this meeting? Yeah, sort of a deal. What's our focus? Now that I understand where we're going, let's organize ourselves so that we can get there. And that's where the roles, responsibility, and all that kind of stuff, the organization phase. Once we've got that pretty well squirreled away, then we start looking at how is information, data, kind of passing back and forth. What are the roadblocks? Let's eliminate those. So open data flow starts to occur here from a task perspective. We know who to go to get it. We know who to give it to if they need it, that sort of thing. And then the last piece has to do with the for the sake of what? Why are we together? Well, that goes back to orientation. But now we got problems we need to solve, okay, in order to get there. So this problem-solving piece has to do with tactical execution. Yeah, just kind of rubber meets the road. In each one of these phases, the leadership demand shifts, or the demand on the leader shifts, is a better way of saying this. Now, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4, it would look like that would be the ideal way that the team will develop, the organization will develop. And it is the ideal. Unfortunately, the ideal never occurs. No. You're always going to be squirrely one way or the other here. And this is where the personality of the people come into play here. You can begin to develop off diagonally one way or the other. If you go off diagonal onto the upper left, the team has really got too much focus on interpersonal relationship dynamics. Okay, they're losing sight of the goal, the objective, the for the sake of what. They like being together. Okay, that's that kumbaya effect. If you develop too heavily on the task side, off diagonally on the lower right, the leadership demand there is to bring more conversation into the team so that they can begin to relate more effectively. And this is oftentimes a very interesting challenge for leaders in organizations, is kind of slowing things down so that you can go faster. Yeah. So this is how this model is organized. And when you go through forming, storming, norming, norming is a sharing group. Now you have the opportunity, ideally, to move into what we call a synergistic, highly effective team. Then the leadership role almost disappears in an effective team because it's interpersonal, or not interpersonal. There's a high degree of interdependence. People just know what to do. Okay, the handoffs become real easy. Nobody has to give direction. Yeah. We know what's required. We know what's going to be coming up. There's anticipation. So the leader's role in the highly effective team, the formal leader's role, is to get stuff out of the way so the team can do their work. Yeah.
That's where that's all downfield blocking and tackling.
Exactly.
It's all downfield. Yeah. I love the explanation that you give to this model, because leaders, as you listen to it and you think about it, the one thing that would encourage you is to, and we'll talk about how to determine where you are maybe a little bit, but as you're looking at this model, it's an interesting thing, because Blaine and I originally, years and years ago, we talked about seasons of a business. Mm-hmm. The season, and it's not, we call it fall, winter, spring, summer, right? So kind of through that seasons of a business. But as you look at where your business is going, you're going to be in these places variably all the time, in different places in the organization. The whole organization won't be in stage 2. You may have that's in stage 1 or in stage 4. Yeah. And one of the things that you're going to have to focus on as the leader is, what are the indicators, and where am I looking for the gaps on the direction that I'm moving, as I'm moving confidently towards it for the sake of the what? Where am I in the gaps as I move towards leading it? And the other thing I would just point out is, so don't expect, by the way, the reason I say that is, don't expect to be in stage 1 and everybody's there. Yeah. In stage 2 and everybody's there. Stage 3, because we mentioned this earlier, it is people in a collection of relationships. So when you're doing that, because everybody's different, they're going to have their own velocity, their own pace, their own statement of understanding, their own willingness, their own capacity, their own capability. And because of that, you're going to be kind of more or less all over. But the key thing, and you were talking about this earlier, is to recognize where those gaps are.
Yeah. Yep. And just to complicate it a little bit more, your team may be working very well. You may have a highly effective team, but they're interacting with a new team that just got formed. So it's an immature group that they're interacting with. So that gets to be an interesting dynamic. Yeah. How does your team actually interface with an immature team and immature group? And what's the leadership call out there? Because you're going to have to interface with their team leader in order to facilitate a migration, because you're going to want your team working with a highly effective team. I mean, that's when you start getting that in play, you're really cooking with gas at that point in time. When you've got highly effective teams working with highly effective teams, it gets to be really interesting and exciting.
Yeah.
Turf battles disappear. Politics become less, and you're never going to eliminate it, but it becomes far less of an issue. And what's interesting here, you can have a highly effective team, and this kind of goes to your point about, it's not static. It's all over the place. If you've got a highly effective team and you introduce a new member into the team, by definition, you have dropped back into stage one.
Yes.
Who's this person? Where do I fit with him? In stage one, the questions that are always present is, who am I and where do I fit? Who am I? Where do I belong? That carries over into stage two. It starts getting answered and then moves into stage three. The people start to settle. I know who I am here. I know what I'm supposed to do. I know where I belong here. And now, if you've got a good, an effective leadership thrust, you're going to be moving into effective teamness. So these two terminal stay resident questions: who am I? Where do I belong? You change the nature of what the team is up to. All of a sudden, and we talked. COVID was a great example of this.
Oh yeah,
it just blew every plan out of the water. So you now have an immature group, and I don't care how long you've been together, because the whole environment has changed. People are looking for, they're looking for answers. So there's a high degree of dependency on the leader. This, at that point, leadership is not a democratic activity. It is more of not authoritative, but a directive. So here's what we're paying attention to. Here's what's up. Here's why we're doing this. Here's where we're headed. Here's the difference that makes. I mean, those sorts of questions. It's not necessarily let's sit back and open the kimono up and everybody have an exploration. There's usually some urgency around this in terms of a timeline. So there's a high degree of dependency on the leadership function, the leadership role, to provide answers appropriately.
Yeah, I love that. That's so important to point out, because once you think you're at stage 4, it doesn't mean you're going to stay in stage 4.
No.
But it's interesting, Blaine, because this week, so leaders, as you're listening to this, Blaine and I co-host a mastermind, and one of the conversations this week in the mastermind is around notice what you're noticing. And in particularly, when you make those introductions into your groups, and particularly think about the ramifications. If you're a senior executive and you're introducing a new senior member into the leadership team of your organization, and you have a current state organization that's an effective team, you've now moved them down the ladder.
Yep.
Because now there's curiosity. Where do I fit? How do I fit with the new leader? Do I still keep my job? Are they going to bring their own people in? These are questions that I hear over and over and over and over with clients. Yep. What does this mean?
Whoa.
What? And to a lesser degree, but with similar impact, I love your point, Blaine, around when you introduce a new human being into that tribe, right? Because when you have interdependence built, and they've now built that effective team that's now moving in synchronicity. That's a $3 word, synchronicity. They're moving in, yeah, that's pretty good. Synchronicity. They're now moving in that manner. You introduce that person in, you break that, you break that chain. And now it is, where does this fit? And it's going to be a new chain. It's not the old chain. It's a new chain.
Yep.
Because they're going to do it their way. So there's a lot that goes. That's why I love this matrix as we talk about it, and leaders, as you're kind of thinking about this, and there's a lot to unpack here.
Oh boy, yeah.
This is one of those power reviews where I would say, reach out to us and we'll spend some time with you and talk about the matrix and how it would apply to your organization, where you might be, symptoms.
Yeah, and we have a whole assessment around this.
Yes.
And it's an interesting assessment. It will allow the team members themselves, including you as the leader, to profile where you think your team is right now. And what emerges out of that are some interesting clusterings, because some people may think that we are in stage 3, others might have us completely over into cohesion and orientation.
Okay. Right.
Kind of like, so people have different experiences, different points of view, different ways of experiencing what's going on with the team. The beauty of this is, once you've got a profile developed, which this assessment makes possible, now you have a conversational platform that can allow you to quickly come back into some sort of alignment around, what do we need to do? What steps do we need to take? For the sake of what? I mean, all of those sorts of things start to drop into play.
Yeah.
So feel free to reach out to us. I mean, we can work with you on this very easily.
That's really important, because that's the wrapper I'll throw over the top of that is, if you think back into the conversation Blaine mentioned, when you hit that upper quadrant with stage 4 and you have an effective team that's communicating, fundamentally the old colloquialism is firing on all cylinders. Since we're using a motor,
redlining, firing on all cylinders.
Redlining, firing on all cylinders. And or if you're wondering what cylinders are, give us a call, we'll tell you. But when you're firing on all cylinders, and that is going on inside of the body of the organization, these changes will shift that. And when that shifts, remember Blaine talked about the role of the leader at that point in time inside of an effective organization is more in front. You're doing blocking and tackling, you're eliminating roadblocks, you're taking the heat, you're doing the things to help them progress so they can continue. When that occurs, you have to shift your role.
Yep.
You are no longer, you do those things because that's what a leader does, but you do it in addition to management, which is resourcing, scheduling, making sure people have what they do, so that you can bring back to that stage of effective team. And you will go in and out of that. So being sensitive to that as a leader is incredibly important. Be aware.
So let's unbundle this just a little bit. We've given you a high-level overview. Actually, more than we actually went into pretty good depth and detail on this.
We did. I was just thinking, whatever, probably have created a headache. But
yeah, probably.
Okay, what the hell just happened here? So I thought leader meant let's talk about this.
Yeah. So you're leading a team, influencing others, co-creating, coordinated movement, pursuit of a worthy ideal. These 4 areas are what we pay attention to. So how you influence makes a difference. And leadership here in the influencing conversation has to do with your state of being before you open your mouth. How do you show up? You're an energetic body. You communicate with, all of us communicate with energy. We use words, we use behaviors, we do all kinds of stuff, but it's more of an energetic feel here. Influencing has to do with energy transference, energy movement. What kind of movement are you causing when you walk into the environment? Because people will organize themselves based on your presence. And if your hair's on fire, that's going to look one way in terms of how they organize themselves. If you come in cool as a cucumber, it's going to look a little bit different than if you had your hair on fire. Both cool as a cucumber, hair on fire, both energetic states. You're influencing there. And why is that important? Well, because you're looking to invite people to co-create with you. This is the dependency orientation area. Dependency and orientation. What are we trying to do here? Co-creating. We as a business think that this is a good idea. We want you to be involved with this because we can't do this without you. What does it make possible for you that you wouldn't get to have, do, or be if we weren't moving in this direction? That question. See, the orientation dependency piece, most people will think about it as a telling space. It's not a telling space. It's a query. It's an exploration. Yeah. People come with questions. So you want to be able to use the questions cause movement. Every time there's a question in place, you celebrate it because it's about movement. People want to move. So you co-create, and then ideally, you're moving into areas that you've never been before because it's a new idea, new ideal. It's a growth. So the idea of coordinated movement. How do we do this dance? We're entering unfamiliar territory. We're going to step on each other's toes. So when you look at fractionated groups, conflict is part of coordinated movement. Coordinated movement is not kumbaya. Coordinated movement isn't harmony and milk and honey. Coordinated movement is the effective use of conflict. The effective use of conflict. Because, when you start rubbing stuff together, stuff starts to fall out. And when stuff starts to fall out, clarity begins to emerge. And, it's a fascinating way of working. And it's all in pursuit of this worthy ideal, which is not the goal, not the objective. And Doland, this is kind of where you actually shine when you're talking about this.
Well, where the ideal is, as an organization, you're moving towards an outcome, a stated outcome, and there's something that you're looking to accomplish. There is a thing that is going to occur. That is important. That's critically important. But the worthy ideal is that inspirational, aspirational piece that gets you out of bed in the morning, not motivates, inspires you, that is value to you as a human. That is the answer to, and Blaine, you touched on this earlier, it is the answer to the question, where do I fit and where am I going? That is the worthy ideal. And every individual on your team will have their concept of their worthy ideal. There is something that they are doing that moves them forward, that inspires them to be a part of it. And you must, as a leader, when you are out of alignment in your worthy ideal and you're only moving towards that thing, you will ultimately disconnect in the path. The path will unwind over time.
Yep.
It will begin to unravel. And you'll have people literally say, I don't understand why we're doing this, but I guess I'll buy in. Does that sound like a quote? That sounds kind of like a quote, right? That's kind of.
It does, yeah. And what you end up with there is compliance. You don't end up with commitment, because what's missing is what matters.
Exactly. I'm going to do it because you said I needed to.
Yep. And it doesn't matter to me outside of the fact that you're my boss.
Right. And I get to keep my job, maybe.
Keep my job, yeah.
Right.
That is a shallow take on what it is that you're trying to make happen.
Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking of the word grave came to mind when you said shallow, but
yes. It's a grave pretty quickly.
Yeah, exactly. So that's worthy ideal. Worthy ideal. So when you're working with worthy ideal with your team, it is not, we're going to increase the worthy ideal is a thing. It is not where your destination is the thing. 10% sales is the thing. That is not the worthy ideal.
Right.
The worthy ideal is what matters to that individual.
To the individual. Now we know what matters to the company. We know it matters, or we wouldn't be bringing it to the table. But why does it matter to you if you're going to be part of this? What does it make possible for you if we do this?
Right. To have, do, or be. How does it make that possible? So
So let's take a look at each one of these, these 4 areas: forming, storming, norming, and then highly effective.
Let's do it.
An immature group, here are some telltales. On a process side, high dependence on the leader to provide direction, goal clarity, clear relational expectations, and developing appropriate meaning for the sake of what matters. On the task side of things, this is is it X or Y? the horizontal one. Leaders providing context that reduces ambiguity.
H and V. There you go.
H and V. Okay, there you go. I did that. So on the task side, you're basically providing content that reduces ambiguity, fear, uncertainty, and increases psychological safety, like you spoke to right at the beginning here.
Oh my.
Okay, what's required of us? What's my job? Okay, on paper. Okay, this is where I might hand out job assignments and role definitions. So, but the immature group is looking for this on the process side and on the task side. So the leader's focus is driving clarity about mission, goals, relevance, expectations, behaviors, and that worthy ideal, that for the sake of what. That's the focus of leadership at that level when a group is coming together or when there's been a significant change. So your focus is one of clarity.
Yeah.
Bringing definition, reducing ambiguity to the point where people begin to feel safe enough to move.
Yeah. Trust. Clarity creates confidence.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Fractionalized group. So process behaviors, right? Leader, in the fractionalized group, where leaders encourage collaboration, openness, discourage cordial. I love that term. Just cordial hypocrisy. It just makes me smile every time I see those words. Yeah, I've seen that before.
Yeah,
I know what that means. Go along to get along. I'm just going to go along because that way nobody knows. I don't have to disagree. But inevitably, there will be conflict.
It will bite you.
Molehills will become mountains.
Yep.
They will. That nature will occur. It happens in life, happens in relationships. It will happen in your team and in task behaviors. The leader facilitates discussion about roles and responsibilities and encourages open dialogue about for the sake of what. Again, notice in the last 2 slides, we grounded back into for the sake of what. So your focus as a leader is really to lean in and approach ensuring emergence of an effective organizational design, which we've not done. Maybe that's the power of you right there. Organizational
design. When you were talking, I was thinking
that's a huge topic. This is how we do power views, by the way, people. We'll talk about that next time. And honest communication, trust, appropriate agency, and accountability. Those things that Blaine leaned in a little bit earlier to the 4 pillars. This is when in this stage in the fractionalized group, this is where the 4 pillars begin to emerge with strength. Trust is that willingness that I trust me, and because I trust me, I trust you. You trust you to try, and you trust me. Agency is that permission to go try, and accountability, which is not a Trello board, not an Excel spreadsheet. Accountability is that mutual commitment that we make to and with each other to accomplish that worthy ideal, that for the sake of what, as we move towards that outcome.
Yeah, that's it. That's the focus. And in all of these, that last bullet point under process behaviors, the leader becomes the model.
Yes.
You model.
Yeah, this slide. Sorry, I went past that. Yeah.
So you're modeling. Here's what's up, guys. Okay. I'm frustrated with this. I need to get you guys to the table here. You guys hash this out. You work this out. So the leader is not being cordially hypocritical. They're actually being, radically honest in one sense here. Not abusively honest, but radically honest. You have to be willing to be comfortable with a high degree of honesty about what's going on. Accountability is a felt experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Test the authentic.
It felt ownership. When I feel ownership about something, I behave as if it's mine, and that's accountable. There's accountability here. And this begins to show up when people begin to call each other out for dropping the ball or not doing something that they said that they would do, because I feel ownership of that, and it's not okay with me that didn't happen.
Right.
So that, again, we go back to the notion of leveraging conflict effectively. Conflict is going to emerge. It will be present. It can't not be present. You want to be able to use it well. And most leaders are not schooled in how to use conflict well. So this fractionalized group space, is from a leadership training school perspective. This is really where you begin to earn your stripes.
Yes. Yet another power view, conflict.
Yes.
Here we go.
Sharing group. Team values and actively attends to relationship quality. So I'll say that again. The team values and actively attends to the quality of the relationships. Differences of opinion are encouraged and explored. Interdependence begins to emerge because now we know each other. And in the knowing, we begin to understand, oh, you have something here that we could use over there. I didn't know that. And so that interdependence starts to become part of the conversational dynamic. And remember, sharing groups are hallmarked by open data flow, information freely moving back and forth. From a task behavior perspective, information is, like I said, being freely shared and requested. Feedback, how'd this work? Not is this good or bad, but how did this work? Feedback is actively sought. Breakdowns are addressed and not allowed to fester. So if somebody stubs their toe, somebody didn't do what they said that they were going to do, it's called out, and not abusively, but it's called out in a way that people can address it. They feel psychologically safe enough to go, mea culpa. Won't happen again. Let's circle back and get this right. So all of that starts to show up here in a sharing group. The focus on from a leadership perspective, is on ensuring that resources and access to the resources are readily available. What do you need? What do you need? Communication remains open and relevant for the sake of what is kept on the forefront of all decision making. So when the team starts making decisions, for the sake of what? For the sake of what? For the sake of what? What does this inform? What matters? Why does it? If that decision is not going to build this up, we probably won't make that decision or choose that decision. What's an alternative? So this begins to move you into becoming highly effective because it begins to sequester inappropriate decisions, puts them in a sandbox, so that now you're doing what is actually leverageable in the most effective way.
Love that. This is where things like there's the methodology around radical candor. Radical candor is employed, but it's employed with the right intention and the right outcome. In this, where that team now is there's a mastery that starts to occur. I love that in this particular stage, a mastery around communication. How we talk and how we work together and engage together, that begins to fully emerge.
Beautiful. Love it. Which ideally you end up here, a highly effective team. It's not just that information is being shared, it's being shared with the intent of putting it to use in the most effective manner possible. So on a process side, explicit recognition and appreciation for the value and the knowledge and expertise that each person brings. I mean, this is the interdependence dynamic. And we're bringing input from everybody. Tommy, what do you think about that? You haven't spoken for a while. I know you got something to say about that because I saw you do something over here that says you know something about this. So, you're actually calling people up. Inviting them to participate.
With the right intent.
Exactly.
With the right intent. Bring your value, not bring your value. Come show me your value. then task behaviors, performance, and effectiveness are key conversation topics. That's a really important two words there, performance and effectiveness. They become conversation topics. They're not avoided. And that means that you're having a conversation from a recognition perspective and a recognition perspective.
Yep.
You're looking at the things we're going to do more of, the things we miss, and the things we want to do less of.
That's exactly how that works.
Yeah, and that's where you're spending your time in those three domains. What do we want to turn up? What do we want to leave as it is? And what do we want to turn down for whatever reason? And then problems are addressed swiftly. There's no avoidance.
Yeah, interesting. Stephen Covey Jr. wrote a book, The Speed of Trust.
Yes.
Stephen's a good friend of mine. The idea here of problems being addressed swiftly, when you have high trust, things can happen really fast because people aren't looking over their shoulder. They're not making stories up about intent or anything else. They just trust that you have the best interest of the team, of what we're doing at heart, and we're going to leverage that. We're going to work with it. We're going to actually take it and run with it. And this is where, the whole idea of develop collaboratively, when we're looking at co-creating coordinated movement, this is where this shines. Co-creating coordinated movement.
All over it. Yeah.
Love that. It's not being imposed by the leader.
No, I love that. And the leadership focus, and without reading the whole paragraph, but to paraphrase it, you become the possibility person.
Yep.
You ask the question, is there a possibility we could do more? You're looking at inspiration, not motivation. Inspiration is intrinsic, motivation is extrinsic. I think those are words. I'm not sure. I make them up.
Well, if they're not, we're going to use them.
That's right, by golly. But again, in the mix of that, we're the ideal, keeping that front and center. But where we talk about raising the performance bar, that is that where you own possibility. Now, as a leader, you're out of do.
Yep.
And you're into possible. Is it possible we could, what if we could do this? What if we could stretch further? And it's not with you leading that question, not leading you leading the statement, sorry. It is you asking the question.
Mm-hmm.
Because inspiration lives in their ability to dream that response.
Say that again.
Inspiration lives in their ability to dream that response. It is their dream, their imagination to answer that. Inspiration lives in that domain where they have that opportunity then to lean forward and say, you know what, we could do more if, and what would the impact? The last question, what's the impact on our worthy ideal? If we were to attain that, what would that do with our worthy ideal? What's that last step in that? But you said something earlier, Blaine, that was really important. It was the bullet that I skipped around living into being the leader and modeling that thinking. Mm-hmm. This is where you are that model now. You are the model for possibility. You are the model for inspiration. You are the model for imagination. That is your role.
Yep.
Your number one job is to be that model. I'll get off the box there for okay.
So if you're the team is not going to develop on a straight line. There's just no way that happens. It gets stuck. It gets in back eddies. All kinds of stuff happens.
Oh my goodness.
Predominantly, though, what tends to happen is it starts developing one way or the other, either more towards the process side or more towards the task side. A lot of this is dependent not only on the leader, but also on the makeup of the team. Who are the people involved?
Right.
So from a leadership perspective, a couple of things to pay attention to, and we've talked about this already, but this is kind of a summary slide. If you notice that the team or the team has assessed itself, if you've actually done the assessment, the self-assessment, and what I like about self-assessments, just a little tangent here, it's impossible for the team members to argue with it because it's their data.
Yeah.
when you do a self-assessment, it's kind of like, oh, well, I don't believe that. Well, yeah, you're the ones that came up with the data on this. I mean, this is your profile, guys. Now, what are we going to do with it? Yeah, I didn't bring this to the table. I brought the instrument to the table so we could assess.
I'm sorry. I laugh because I've been in those meetings where people raise their head and go, that doesn't sound right. Well, I don't know. It's what you said.
That's what you said. This is what you indicated was going on.
It's like,
so if the team starts developing too much on the process side, and it will be profiled, you can see this in the profiling that happens with this.
Yeah.
It's actually paying more attention to the interpersonal relationships than it is to the task focused. Now, they may be giving lip service to the task, but subliminally and psychologically, they're paying more attention to the question, who am I and where do I fit here? With these other yahoos that I'm supposed to be working with. So the leadership focus in an off-diagonal sense in this context is driving clarity about how greater attention to mission goals and relevance, expectations, behaviors, and worthy ideals improves impact. So the idea here is to bring it back to the question of impact.
Mm-hmm.
Impact. What do you need more information about so we can be more impactful? Do you need greater clarity about what we're up to, what the mission and goals are? Do you need greater clarity about the for the sake of what? About roles and responsibilities, but it's all in service of impact, all in service of impact.
Mm-hmm.
On the other side, if the team profiles that it's paying more attention to task work, to doing stuff rather than being stuff, you're looking at burnout. You're looking at underappreciated resources being sidelined. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that comes into play here. But the teams organized around task accomplishment, standard operating procedures, rules and regulations. We got stuff going on here. Relationship quality, relationship fidelity is far less of a concern here. So what the leader wants to do is bring clarity to how a healthy relational dynamic impacts mission, goals, relevance, expectations, behaviors, and the worthy ideal. So it comes back to impact again. Why do we want to have some time, slow down to go faster? We want to slow down so we can get to know each other better. This doesn't mean we're going to get married. It just means that you can't appreciate what other people are bringing to the table unless you have a relational conversation with them to begin to explore that. You're not going to get interpersonal or interdependence with a high focus on task. Just not going to happen.
Yeah, can't.
So leadership, squirrely. I mean, one size does not fit all. What's the situation call for?
Yeah.
What's the situation call for?
That is, and I'll go back to the very beginning of when we started this power review. That is the art. And leaders, that is the ability to notice what you're noticing, which is to be in tune, being authentic, be present. And it goes, if you go back to the definition of leadership, it is, we talked about influencing. It's how you are showing up when you walk through that door. Are you fully present? Are you in the right mindset to be that leader? So this is good. I love this.
Yeah. So that's the power of you for today, for this week.
Yeah.
Group development. What's the leadership challenge as you develop your groups? So want to thank you for listening. And
by all means,
we'll see you next week. Same time, same stations, roughly speaking. LinkedIn.
Give or take a nickel, we'll be back.
Facebook, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, take your pick. We'll see you there.
Some kind of talk, not sure.
Some kind of talk. Now,
Dr. Bartlett,
Dr. White,
always a pleasure.
Blessings to you, and I'll talk to you later.
Great, great, great.